remembered for passion and enthusiasm. Conservation is my job, my life, my whole persona.
Steve Irwin was an iconic Australian zookeeper, conservationist, television personality, and wildlife educator, also known as the Crocodile Hunter. On September 4, 2006, Steve Irwin, at the age of 44, was filming an underwater documentary called Ocean's Deadliest near Australia's Great Barrier Reef when a stingray suddenly pierced his chest. Within minutes, he was dead. This is the tragic story of Steve Irwin, the Crocodile Hunter. Steve Irwin was born on February 22, 1962 in Melbourne, Australia. Stephen Robert Irwin wasn't destined for an ordinary life. His parents, Bob and Lynn Irwin, were wildlife enthusiasts running a small reptile park. This became Steve's playground, immersing him in the fascinating world of animals from a young age. Instead of toys, Steve had pythons for playmates and crocodiles for bathmates. He caught his first venomous snake at 6 and helped rehabilitate injured animals under his mother's care. In 1970, the family moved to Queensland and transformed their passion into the Queensland Reptile and Fauna Park. At 19, Steve took over the struggling reptile park, renaming it Australia Zoo. He poured his heart and soul into expanding the facility and diversifying its animal residents. While many feared for Irwin's safety, he seemed to find a way to get himself out of any sticky situation. But on September 4, 2006, Steve Irwin died suddenly after he was attacked by a stingray while filming in the Great Barrier Reef. Perhaps the most shocking thing about how Steve Irwin died was the fact that stingrays are naturally calm creatures that usually swim away when they get scared. So why did this stingray go after him? What happened to Steve Irwin on the day that he died? And how did a man known for wrangling crocodiles and snakes get killed by such a docile creature? Steve Irwin grew up around animals, known as the Crocodile Hunter, and he always seemed to have a sixth sense when it came to wild creatures. In fact, he caught his first venomous snake when he was just 6 years old. By the time he was 9, he reportedly wrestled his first crocodile under his father's supervision. With such a wild upbringing, it's no surprise that Steve Irwin grew up to be a wildlife expert like his father, Bob Irwin. Irwin's relationship with his wife was just as daring as his relationship with life. In 1991, Irwin had a chance meeting with American naturalist Terry Raines while she was visiting the park that his parents founded. By that point, Steve had taken over management. Terry described their encounter as love at first sight, and the couple got married just 9 months later. Shortly after the pair got hitched, Steve Irwin began to attract media attention. In the early 1990s, he and his wife began filming wildlife videos for a new series called The Crocodile Hunter. Steve and his wife Terry spent their honeymoon trapping crocodiles together. Film footage of their honeymoon taken by John Stainton became the first episode of The Crocodile Hunter. The series debuted on Australian TV screens in 1996 and made its way onto North American television the following year. The Crocodile Hunter became successful in the United States, the UK. On the show, Irwin was known for getting up close and personal with some of the world's most dangerous animals like crocodiles, pythons, and giant lizards, and audiences loved it. But as his fame skyrocketed, the public began to question his methods, which were sometimes described as reckless. Rex Neindorf, the owner of Australia's Alice Springs Reptile Centre, recalled that Irwin's extreme comfort with animals sometimes clouded his judgment. "I told him explicitly not to handle the animal and to use a broom, but Steve completely ignored me," said Neindorf, referring to a 2003 incident in which Irwin encountered a 2-yard-long lizard. He ended up with about 10 incisor marks on his arm. There was blood everywhere. That was Steve, the entertainer. He was a real showman. In January 2004, Irwin courted even more controversy when the public witnessed him feeding a crocodile while holding his son Robert, who was only a month old. Irwin later apologized on several TV outlets. He appeared on Larry King Live and claimed that the camera angle made the crocodile look much closer than it actually was. "I've been feeding crocodiles with my older child Bindi for like 5-odd years," Irwin told King. "I would never endanger my children." While Irwin's colleagues argued that he was cautious about safety, his uninhibited relationship with animals would ultimately catch up to him. On September 4, 2006, Steve Irwin and his film crew headed to the Great Barrier Reef to film a new series called Ocean's Deadliest. Just over a week into filming, Irwin and his crew initially planned to shoot scenes with a tiger shark, but when they couldn't find one, they settled on an 8-foot-wide stingray instead, for a separate project. The plan was for Irwin to swim up to the animal and have the camera capture the moment that it swam away. Nobody could have predicted the freak ocean accident that would happen next. Instead of swimming away, the stingray propped on its front and began stabbing Irwin with its barb, striking him multiple times in the chest. The stinger penetrated his thoracic wall, causing massive trauma. "It went through his chest like a hot knife through butter," said Justin Lyons, the cameraman who filmed the ill-fated scene. Lyons didn't realize how severe Irwin's injury was until he saw him in a pool of blood. He quickly got Irwin back in the boat. According to Lyons, Irwin knew he was in trouble, saying, "It punctured my lung." However, he didn't realize that the barb had actually pierced his heart. Lyons said, "As we're motoring back, I'm screaming at one of the other crew in the boat to put their hand over the wound, and we're saying to him things like, 'Think of your kids, Steve. Hang on, hang on, hang on.' He just sort of calmly looked up at me and said, 'I'm dying.' And that was the last thing he said." The cameraman added that the stingray had done so much damage to Irwin's heart that there was little anyone could have done to save him. He was just 44 years old when he died. His death was met with shock and grief by fans, the media, governments, and non-profit organizations. As for the reason why the stingray went after Irwin, Lyons said, "It probably thought Steve's shadow was a tiger shark who feeds on them pretty regularly, so it started to attack him." The whereabouts of footage capturing Steve Irwin's harrowing final moments remain a mystery 17 years after his tragic death. Camera crews worked desperately to save the environmental icon before getting him to shore, where paramedics performed CPR, but he died before reaching the hospital. The entire incident was caught on camera for the TV program, Ocean's Deadliest, with tapes handed over to authorities to help their investigation into his death. The footage has never seen the light of day, thanks to the wishes of Irwin's close friends and family. Except for one, all copies of the footage that captured Irwin's death were destroyed immediately after authorities completed their investigation in 2007. Irwin had ordered all his teams to film everything that happened regardless of the dire situation, with the horrific footage immediately handed over to authorities investigating his death. He tells his camera crew to always be filming. If he needs help, he will ask for it. Even if he is eaten by a shark or crocodile, the main thing he wants is that it be filmed. If he died, he would be sad if no one got it on tape. Irwin's best mate and director, John Stainton, vowed at the time of the tragedy that he would ensure the video was never made public, insisting the footage was far too distressing to be shown. When that is finally released, after being investigated, it will never see the light of day. Ever. Ever. Stainton told CNN host Larry King in an emotional interview shortly after Irwin's death in 2006. "I actually saw it, but I don't want to see it again. I would never want that tape shown." According to Lyons, Irwin had strict orders that anything that happened to him should be recorded. So that meant that his gruesome death and the multiple attempts to save him were all caught on camera. The footage was soon turned over to authorities for them to review. When it was inevitably concluded that Steve Irwin's death was a tragic accident, the video was returned to the Irwin family, who later said that the footage of Steve Irwin's death had been destroyed. The Prime Minister of Australia offered to hold a state funeral for him. Although the family declined the offer, fans quickly scrambled to the Australia Zoo, where they left flowers and condolence notes in his honor. 15 years later, Steve Irwin's death remains a mystery. In a tragic twist, Irwin was not meant to be at sea that day, as filming for his show Ocean's Deadliest was cancelled due to bad weather. Bored at his hotel with his cameraman Justin Lyons and director Stainton, the trio embarked on a small boat to Batt Reef off the Port Douglas coast. After failing to track a deadly tiger shark off the reef, Irwin locked in on a large 8-foot stingray for a separate project they were working on, believed to be his daughter's Bindi the Jungle Girl show. Suddenly, he expressed interest in encountering some typically harmless stingrays. It should have been an innocuous encounter for a children's program, Stainton recalled. Irwin swam above the usually docile and harmless stingray before it projected one of its barbs into his chest, potentially mistaking him for a shark. Rays use the barbs, which are 3 venomous spinal blades in their tail, as a defense mechanism when threatened or stepped on. The stingray pierced Irwin's chest as he swam over it and struck his heart, with crews rushing the icon to their boat. It went through his chest like a hot knife through butter, Lyons recalled. Irwin told his team the ray punctured my lung after being hit, not realizing it had instead struck his heart. It probably thought Steve's shadow was a tiger shark, who feeds on them pretty regularly, so it started to attack him, Lyons recalled. As we're motoring back, I'm screaming at one of the other crew in the boat to put their hand over the wound, and we're saying to him things like, "Think of your kids, Steve. Hang on, hang on, hang on." He just sort of calmly looked up at me and said, "I'm dying." And that was the last thing he said. Stainton accompanied Irwin's body on a seaplane back from Cairns, following his death before watching as his wife Terry and children Bindi and Robert arrived to see his casket for the first time. Thanks for watching this story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell to stay updated on more similar videos. We would love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share your comments below. Until next time.